I will request all speakers to check their audio. Hello, ma'am. Are you there?
Yes, I'm very much there.
Okay. Tanmay, I guess we can wait for 2 minutes and then we'll start. Not... Tripti ma'am, have you joined?
Yeah, I'm there. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, ma'am. Abdul sir, are you there? Anna. Hello, Anna ma'am. Good morning.
Ma'am, Abdul sir has not joined yet.
Okay.
Hello. Hello, everybody.
Hello, ma'am.
Nice to see you.
Thank you, thank you. Thank you so much for joining us. Tripti ma'am, can you text me? I'm not able to find you, so I can make you co-host.
You can see my screen. It is with T.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, Tanmay.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, wherever you are. On behalf of the Water Policy Center COVID-19 Dialogue, Sectoral Impacts, Global Responses, and Enhancing Resilience to Future Pandemics, it gives me great pleasure to extend a warm welcome to our distinguished speakers, chair, and participants who have joined this session. To the chair of this session, we have Mrs. Shilpa Suryavanshi ma'am with us today. It is my great pleasure to introduce the chair. Shilpa Suryavanshi ma'am is the head and assistant professor at Department Political Science, Vazai College, Mumbai. She has pursued BA in Political Science and Economics from Ruparel College, Matunga, and MA in Political Science from the University of Mumbai. She also has previously taught in Shailendra College, Dahisar, and Dr. D.Y. Patil Law College, Nerol. Currently, she is also the Swayam coordinator at Vazai Kelkar College, Mulund. With 19 years of teaching experience, she has published a few national as well as international papers. She is presently pursuing her PhD along with teaching. Without extending further, let me request Shilpa Suryavanshi ma'am to take charge of this session.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Tanmay, for the short and sweet introduction. I thank Rao Saib sir and Water Policy Center for inviting me to chair this session. I congratulate Rao Saib sir for organizing the COVID-19 dialogue, sectoral impacts, global responses, and enhancing resilience to future pandemics. Today we have a great panel with us from people from different parts of the world. So I would just quickly list their names. We have with us Anna Volkova, Abdul Muhit Chaudhary, Preeta Menon, Lakshmi Priya, and Tripathi Bharatwal. So I welcome all the panelists for today's session, and I request each of the panelists to present and stick to the given time because we have back-to-back sessions. The questions will be posted in the chat box, and I can take a few questions in the end. So I'm looking forward today to hearing from all our panelists. So first and foremost, I like to invite Anna Volkova, Madam. She's the Professor, Department of Political Governance, St. Petersburg State University, Russia. And her topic for today is COVID-19 as a trigger of coercive digitalization, challenges and lessons for civil society. So over to Anna, ma'am.
Hello once again, everybody. Thank you for possibility to contact with you to present my paper at your conference. It's really great. Even I prepared PowerPoint presentation, and now I would like to show you my presentation. Is it okay?
Yeah, ma'am.
Have a
Yes, ma'am.
possibility. Is it okay? COVID?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
So, of course, the coronavirus pandemic has led to significant changes in numerous spheres of the world society, everyday life. I would like to focus on the impact of COVID-19 on digitalization process, public policy, Russia and Germany. To compare Russia and Germany is a very great and strong Russian tradition. And of course, we expected that Germany on the top of process of digitalization, but according to Digital Economy and Society Index, Germany is only the 12th position in the European Union. So it is not as a leader, and Germany really has great problems with digitalization process before pandemic. By the way, at the beginning of the pandemic, our leaders, Putin as well as Merkel, addressed their citizens with a request for the trust in the national government. They asking to show solidarity and cohesion in the face of difficulties. If we will compare speeches of two leaders, we will see that Putin asked only about solidarity, but Merkel asked for democratization process, and they also asked to keep strong tradition of civil society. By the way, the level of the trust government and business structure in Germany was not higher. By the way, citizens in Germany more trust the business structure in digitalization, and they were absolutely sure that in process of digitalization, business structure have more competitions. You can see the picture that this percent citizen who absolutely sure that business on top in the process of digitalization. If we will compare with situation in the government, you will see that citizen in Germany was not sure that their government structure has a special competition for digitalization process. You can see only a few people sure that government really good structure for digitalization process. And of course, pandemic is a change for political system in both countries, in Russia and in Germany. And during the process, during this year, some scientific center tried to help their government to prepare some program, how to overcome the pandemic situation. And in fact, Germany create seven theses for new normal. New normal means that the corona is turning point, and return to the before is impossible. And so you can see the seven theses how to overcome the pandemic crisis. First of all, accelerated digitalization of the economy. The crisis is focusing many companies to save money. Now it's in the long term. So digitalization is always been at the catalyst for increasing efficiency and financial stability. The second, assisted digital collaboration. It's a very important thesis because coronavirus was like a challenge, and working from home is like vacation, but probably been overcome by the corona crisis. The third, corona showed that development of hybrid working models is a good way for overcome this crisis situation. This includes, on the one hand, finding ways to promote digital skills for productive working from home. And on the other hand, it must become clear when the bidding at the office is necessary, not only for high performance. So the good result is to join working at home and working in office. It also helps German government to get support from civil society organization and business structure. Another, more interaction with private customers, and on the other hand, resistant value chains for business customer. But for me, the main and very interesting thesis is exploring the potential of digital education. Before crisis, for example, the digital school was like a rare Germany, and many schools and nursery school were lacking hardware and software. But on the other hand, the corona has put the topic right at the top of agenda. And now in Germany, there are many programs which help schools to improve the situation with computers, with soft, with teachers, and probably the point of growth potential digital education. It's impossible to use only digital education, but once again, to hybrid format, it's probably the best way. And the digital movement for social life. It's also very interesting, and people started to communicate not only in Zoom, and other platforms for working process and also after working. By the way, the crisis was like a catalyst for social networks. And now in Germany, we can see several platforms and social networks which can help citizens to overcome their crisis. By the way, citizen science is one of the important way to improve situation with education and to create communication between universities and school children and citizen. Citizen science is also exists in Russia, but in Russia it is not very popular. But in Germany, in the time of the crisis, citizen science was like a good way to improve situation with education, to improve communication skill for citizen. And there are some platform for citizen science. For example, the platform Citizens Create Knowledges. Another project of Munich University. It's also a way to support citizen science activity and help citizen to improve situation in a social sphere. And for me, it's very interesting the site for teachers who worked at home and try to help colleagues to organize something new, materials and some new ways to contact with students. For me, it's very interesting and important that crisis create a possibility for social learning. I think it's a great result for social education and digitalization of school. Social learning in the process of communication, in process of activity. So this picture showed that in Germany, Corona crisis was like a challenge both for the administration system and for civil society. If we will compare situation in Germany, in Russia, we will see that in fact crisis and digitalization didn't create something new, but the development of so-called coercive digitalization reflected stereotypes, practice, and interaction. So Corona didn't create something new, but it's actualized the situation with stereotypes, culture, tradition, and for example, for Russia, the main problem is weakness of mechanism of public control, weakness civil society. It also creates some new problem in process of overcome Corona crisis. First of all, one hand, some people wanted to get help from citizen, from from the state, and wanted to get all without anything. The main idea was the state must create all conveniences and all circumstances for crisis. Another position was that citizens want to be like a policeman and help the state to keep the order and control the all social activity. So, and the main idea of my presentation is the development of so-called coercive digitalization reflected certain stereotypes, practice of interaction. They didn't create something new, but work like a trigger of digitalization, and all problem which has a citizen became more clear. Thank you.
Thank you, Anna, madam. That was a fascinating presentation. You focused on the key scientific centers, the 7 stages, forced digitalization, social learning, the administrative challenges, lessons for civil society in this pandemic situation. I am really speechless. It was thoroughly enriching session. Now, thank you so much. Now we
Thank
move
you.
on to our next speaker. We are blessed today to have Abdul Mohit Chaudhary, sir, with us. He's a senior program officer, South Center, Geneva, Switzerland, and he would be talking on the role of international tax reform in financing COVID-19 response. Over to Chaudhary, sir.
Thank you, Ms. Kedari. I just wanted to clarify, how much time do I have for the presentation?
Around 10 to 15 minutes, because later on we will have to take up a few questions as well.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Can everyone see my slide?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so this is a good segue from the previous speaker, what Anna was talking about, the pervasive role of digitalization in our society. So we're really seeing a rise in digital technologies to facilitate pretty much all aspects of lives in the post-COVID period. And this is really central when we talk about international tax reform and how do we pay for the schools and hospitals and, the hospitals and the medicines and the PPE which we need to respond to the COVID pandemic. So my presentation is about how international tax is important to get the money we need to pay for the COVID pandemic response, But a great deal of this discussion will actually focus upon the role of the digitalized economy, which Anna was talking about just in the previous presentation. So the first thing to talk about when we speak about international taxation is that in general, if a country needs money to pay for the pandemic, there are various sources of this money. But unfortunately now, because of the pandemic, the external sources are going to dry up. So if you look at the very first slide over here, the picture actually, this is data on foreign direct investments. This is from UNCTAD. So we see from 2015, there's been a gradual decline. In 2018, it had kind of stabilized, but then after 2019, it really began to drop. And this is now going to get much worse because of the pandemic. There's not much foreign direct investment coming into any of our, especially the developing countries. And maybe sometime around the end of 2021, we can expect it to pick up once again. But this is really just based on a set of assumptions. So this is quite an optimistic scenario. So from foreign direct investment, there's not much money to be expected, at least for some time. This is this is revenue from customs, which are basically tariffs on imports and exports. And we see that the dates here aren't given, but this is roughly from the 1980s. We see that there's been a steady decline in customs revenue because over time, because of free trade negotiations and agreements, there have been a steady reduction in tariffs. So even customs revenue has been declining. And in the last year, from 2018 to 2019, when the global economy began to slow down, it's really diminished. And now with the COVID pandemic, we can expect that it would drop much further. So even from customs revenue, there's not much money to be expected. Then this is money from aid, basically, which are officially called official development assistance. So these are various ways of measuring aid. So this one is fixed investment, and this is so these are various indicators, but they all say the same thing essentially, which is that aid too has been declining with time. And now as countries, even the donor countries which are part of the Paris Club, the OECD economies and so on, they are going to really find it very difficult to continue keeping up with their aid commitments. So even aid as a source of revenue is going, I mean, not that it's really revenue technically, but aid as a source of financing will reduce. So we see that externally, there's not much money going to come from the rest of the world to help us pay for the pandemic. So we are going to have to look at domestic sources. Now, the main source of domestic revenue mobilization is tax. And there is a great deal of potential to raise money from taxes. So first, let's see how much is the potential. So these are estimates of revenue loss from tax avoidance. And just yesterday, in fact, there was a launch of this panel in the United Nations called the FACTI panel. And the FACTI panel is a panel which looks at financial transparency and integrity. And they had released an interim report yesterday. And their estimate, they also repeated this figure of $500 billion, which is lost every year because of corporate tax avoidance. This is $500 billion, which could be collected by governments across the world and which would really increase their resources in, especially now, in helping pay for the pandemic response. The FACTI panel report also reiterated this figure of $7 trillion, which is an estimate of how much wealth is held offshore in private assets, basically money stashed in tax havens, money, stocks, bonds, other sorts of assets. And here we see some of the top tax havens actually, and you can see these are mostly Western countries, especially the United Kingdom. The Netherlands is actually one of the world's biggest tax havens, and Bermuda, Cayman Islands, British Virgin Islands are all colonies of the United Kingdom. They are officially called overseas territories and crown dependencies. Yeah, where I am right now, Switzerland is also quite a big tax haven, in fact. So these are basically really playing a big role in depriving developing countries of revenue, which could play a big role in paying for the pandemic. Now we come to the point which the previous speaker Anna was talking about, which is the role of the digitalized economy. So we see that in this situation, a lot of companies are going bust. They're really struggling, but we see that there's a big winner, which is tech giants who are providing the digital services such as the one we're using right now. So we see that Amazon and Apple and Alphabet, Microsoft, Alphabet is a company which owns Google, Microsoft, Facebook, all of these have seen an increase in revenue in the first 6 months of 2020. So when other companies are really going bust, these have seen a huge rise in increase. And this also reflects in their valuation in the stock markets, which have been keeping overall stock market valuations artificially high. And so the first thing to notice is that the digital economy is really the key winner, and this is the main target we need to look at when it comes to raising taxes from a particular source. Another aspect is that because many other of their competitors in the digitalized economy, many other tech companies which are smaller are going bust, these companies are actually going to become bigger and more powerful because they're going to either buy out or they're going to be a lot of mergers and acquisitions. There's going to be a lot of industry consolidation in this space. So the tech sector is really the main focus for countries to raise taxes from right now. So the question is now, first we should really try to understand is that how do these companies first make money? So then we can understand how we can raise money from taxes from this revenue model. So this is two examples. One is from Google, which is Alphabet, which is the company which owns Google, and Facebook. So we see that the vast majority of income is actually revenue is actually coming from advertising. And then there are other sources of revenue which come from advertisement, from selling the services, cloud services and music and so on. And for Facebook, we see it's actually 98%, almost the entirety of their revenue comes from advertising. So now, because these are tech companies, these don't really need a physical presence in another country to provide these services. They can just set up an app or a website, and through that, they can provide their services. And this creates some unique challenges to when it comes to taxing. So international tax is about taxing non-residents, and because these companies don't need a physical presence in another country, they are effectively non-residents. So they're making money from that country, but they're not tax residents of that country. So under current international tax rules, if you want to tax a non-resident, they need to have a physical presence in your country. So Article 5 of the UN and OECD Model Tax Conventions, which is the basis on which most double tax agreements are negotiated between countries, Article 5 says that you need a physical presence in your country, otherwise the company will pay tax in their country of residence. So for example, if Facebook is selling advertisements in India and it has no physical presence in India, it would pay taxes only in the United States where it is a resident, though actually it's also a resident of Ireland and a whole set of other tax havens. Even if it has a physical presence, the taxes which can be collected from that company would be only the taxes which you can collect from the local branch, which is in your country. And the amount of profit which is attributed to that branch, which can then be taxed, is governed by Article 9 of these international tax conventions, which is basically the basis of this process called transfer pricing. And transfer pricing is a process through which multinational corporations' profits are allocated to its various subsidiaries or branches. And when it comes to the digital economy, it's very, very complicated because these companies are basically deriving most of their revenue from technology, from software, from algorithms, from intellectual property, essentially. And there are many challenges when it comes to the transfer pricing of intangibles. So they don't need a physical presence to sell their services. Because of this, under current tax rules, it's very difficult to tax them because you need physical presence to tax them. And even if you have physical presence, because most of their their business model or their value creation comes from intellectual property, from algorithms and software, there are many challenges when it comes to the valuation of these things, and that gives rise to a lot of difficulties in transfer pricing of intangibles and attributing profits to the subsidiaries or branches of the multinational corporations. So because of that, developing countries really struggle to tax these tech giants, and that is why we are seeing these companies just making more and more and more money, while the rest of the economy is suffering and the governments are really unable to tax them. So there are a lot of discussions going on right now on how do we reform this tax rule so that these companies can be taxed. So one set of discussions is going on within this organization called the OECD. The OECD is an intergovernmental organization of 36 countries, which are the richest countries in the world, mostly in Europe, but also I think Singapore and so on, some other Japan and other countries like those. And they are a very influential body which sets standards in international tax. And they are currently leading the discussion on how do we reform these rules. And there's a proposal which is being discussed, which is extremely complicated. Even for the OECD countries, which are very advanced tax administrations, they find it a very, very difficult proposal to understand. But the basic effort which they're trying to do is to solve this problem of physical presence, so that even without physical presence, these companies can have a taxable can be taxed in the country where they are selling the services, and to make these problems of transfer pricing a little easier. So this is the first aspect which tries to reform these two challenges of physical presence and transfer pricing. And the second aspect is that they're really trying to set in place a global minimum corporate tax, so that every company, no matter where it pays a minimum amount of tax. So that is the approach which is being taken towards this challenge of taxing the digitalized economy. There's another proposal within the United Nations on how do we again try to solve this problem of taxation in the digitalized economy. So the effort within the UN is to update the UN Model Convention on double tax agreements between developed and developing countries. So this is a model convention which is used as a basis for bilateral negotiations between countries. So they want to include a new article, Article 12B, into this model convention. And they basically want to, Article 12B would basically cover income from automated digital services. So automated digital services would be basically if you pay for a Netflix subscription, or if you pay for an ad on Facebook, or if you pay for a song on Google Music, or if you buy a movie from Google from Google Play, or you buy a video game. So any kind of this payment which doesn't require a human being's intervention, that is basically income from an automated digital services. So this income, so this is what the scope would be. This is what it would cover, and it would solve the problem of physical presence by saying that you don't need any physical presence as long as you have certain revenue threshold. So as long as the sales revenue from a particular jurisdiction crosses a certain amount, then you would have a taxable presence. And they actually bypass the transfer pricing problem to an extent by saying that a certain percentage of the sales revenue will be your taxable income. That's one option which is given. The other option is that uh, which is a gross basis tax, or it could be taxed on a net income basis. So a certain formula is applied to find out the net income on which the subsidiary would or the company would have to pay taxes, basically. So this is the effort within the UN and within the OECD. This is what developing countries are really pressing for, especially within the UN. And the hope is that by this, they will be able to start making these tech giants, which are really the digitalized economy, start paying up, because we are all going to be using these softwares and applications much more in the future, as the previous speaker was saying. And it's very important that governments are actually able to tax these businesses so that they can use that to finance the COVID response. And this also has another aspect, which is basically competition, because if these companies are not paying taxes, but domestic companies are paying taxes, then it will be that much harder for domestic companies to compete. So it also is very important to provide a level playing field. So yeah, so with that, I come to the end of my presentation. And if I know it was a lot of technical content and maybe a little out of scope, but I'm happy to answer any questions anyone may have. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Chaudhary sir. It was a nice presentation. You highlighted various issues like declining funds from external sources such as FDI, customs revenue, and overseas development assistance. You also spoke of estimates of revenue loss from tax avoidance. You put forward an interesting and important point that no external help will pour in, and we have to rely on our domestic sources. You also brought about the digital economy mergers and acquisitions part very nicely. I agree with you that pandemic has created rising demand for digital goods and services, and this can be very much seen, especially in the education sector. When we see that various platforms like Zoom, Google Meet, Microsoft Teams are coming up, so that was a very important point. Uh, the other thing that I liked about is when you spoke of the revenue generation and the comparison you made of the digital revenue from digital revenue that is generated by Google and Facebook. Uh, the best part of your presentation was also the two proposals that you brought out, the OECD proposal and UN proposal. And in the end, the solution that you gave us is very viable. So thank you again. And now I call upon our next speaker. Okay, so we have with us Preeta Menon. She's the head of the Department Media and Journalism, Flame School of Communication, Flame University, Pune. And she will be highlighting on the changing behavior through message framing for mass media. Over to Preeta Menon.
Thank you so much. My topic today is about, for the past 2 days, I'm sure there have been various deliberations on COVID-19 and how it's, affecting different parts of our daily life. But what I'm bringing here today is, the people of the country and how changing their is at the root of curbing the pandemic. I'm currently in Pune, and you would know that the numbers are highest here. And this research study has been an attempt to find out if small changes in the way we frame messages will make a difference to how people react to these messages, and if it would lead to positive outcomes. Basically, taking more care in protecting themselves and also people around them during the pandemic. So let me begin by sharing. I hope it's visible. Yeah, so that's my topic. We are talking about how we can change behavior through message framing.
I request everyone not to have any annotations on the screen.
Yeah.
Organizers, please take care of it.
Thank you. Thank you.
Can the annotations please be turned off? Because not able to see the settings here.
Right.
All right, no problem, ma'am. You can carry on. Thank you.
Sure. So what I have here are a few messages, snippets of messages from various governments, because governments have been at the forefront of spreading the message of how you should take care of both yourself and the people and environment around you during a pandemic. And the first one that you're seeing here is from the government of India, from the Ministry of Health. And it talks about various do's and don'ts. And naturally, the usual suspects of don'ts are that you don't shake hands and you don't take your hand to your nose unless, and as soon as you do it, make sure that you wash your hands, it's sanitized, maintain a social distance. So it's a kind of an elaborate message that's come from the Ministry of Health in India. Here's another one which says unite against COVID-19. This is the New Zealand government, and yet another one which is from the UK government. So I'm just trying to show you the different kinds of messages that are out there to make people aware, and also to see how people, which are the largest force of spreading the virus, can contribute to actually reducing it and bringing the numbers down on this. So one of the ways in which you can do it is by message framing. So while messages are going out from the governments of various nations, some of them are being effective in, in changing behavior, whereas some others are not. So what is this message framing? It is the art of crafting information. How you say something can make a difference on how people accept this information and also how they behave based on this information. So it can actually change audience and individual reactions based on what you tell them. Many a times we realize this, that in, when we are talking to people, saying the right thing makes a big difference. So this is what we are looking at. In the context of message framing, there are two kinds of message frames. You could have positive frames or negative frames. When a message is framed positively, it is an example that you can say the same thing in two different ways. If you take a look at this, one says that you can save money in AdWords now. I've picked it up naturally from Google and the source mentioned. and says get my report on how you can save it, and the other message says stop wasting money in AdWords. Both of them actually are urging you to be more efficient and optimize your spending on AdWords, but one says save money and the other says stop wasting. All other things being equal, except the emoji at the base, one which is stop wasting is an angry face, and the one that says save money has almost reached enlightenment through saving money on AdWords. So these are examples of how you could use different sorts of frames to reach out to your audience and see which is more effective. Largely in public service messages, health-based messages, there are two kinds of opinions. Past research, and experts usually tend to say that negative messages in a pandemic kind of a situation, which means whenever there is a health related issue, negative messages make more impact. They are more impactful. But here's a study from medicalexpress.com, which I have picked up. It said that they found that public follows positive messages. So really the last word on this is not out. As far as public health messages are concerned, we really don't know which one to go with, whether to listen to experts and past research, or whether to listen to one study which says that, public prefer positive messages. So my research work really is about this situation or this problem of whether you should frame messages positively or negatively in the COVID-19 situation to get better results or get better impact from the citizens of the country. And especially so so this is true of any public message or any message that any government or other bodies may want to give. But let's look at the situation of a mortality salience. What do we mean by mortality salience? Is when people are actually in fear of death. Around us, we hear of how near and dear ones are succumbing to COVID-19, and many a times with very let's say very low understanding of how this happens. So one of the things that is topmost on our minds is, will it affect us as well? Are we going to be victims of COVID-19, and will it take our life, positive or negative, make a difference, especially when it comes from the government? So the first question for this research is, will public adhere to norms of positive or negative frames, like how we discussed? What if it is in the wake of mortality salience, or when you are afraid of dying? And are there any gender differences in how people consume these messages? And are there any differences based on the education of the people who are watching these messages? For this, we are conducting, this is a live study which is happening currently. We are conducting a field experiment. What you're seeing here is a teaser campaign. We've created this character called Hood, and the ads are running currently in Jamshedpur. So the study is between three of us. One, apart from me, there is a professor from XLRI Jamshedpur, and there is another professor from Bond University, Australia. And we are trying to look at the effect of these sort of messages. So this is a teaser message where we are introducing this character called Hood. Hood is supposed to be a person who tells people whether all the precautionary measures for not getting COVID-19, and we want to check if he says it in a positive frame, or if he says it in a negative frame, will it have better impact? So we are going to run these ads and then check with both public reaction and also through a lab experiment on whether they'd adhere to things that Hood says, like wear a mask or sanitize your hands, etc., in a better fashion. So here are some messages. Maybe not all of you can understand what's here, but basically what's happening is the first frame is Hood adhering, wearing the mask, and telling Manglu, who is a bodybuilder, on why he is in the market without a mask. So this same frame can be, same message can be framed positively or negatively. And the next frame is where Manglu's in the hospital. He is contacted with COVID-19. So he tells in the previous frame, he tells that, you know, I'm a bodybuilder. I don't need to, I'm already very healthy. I don't need to take care. It's okay. And in the second frame, he is unwell. And then Hudhud has the option of either saying, if you had listened to me, you would be healthy today, or of saying that if you had listened to me, you would not be in the hospital, you would not be sick, you and your family would not be in this situation. So this is the kind of messages that are going through. What I'm showing you here is something that happened on Twitter. So the government of in Jamshedpur is helping us out. We are working together. That's how we got the hoarding space as well. It's government funded. And then, you know, we are running Twitter messages of Hudhud coming and saving. Hudhud Maji is the character we have created. And you can look out for Hudhud because this is a running experiment, and we hope to see the results are yet to be out. While the lab results are out, the field experiment is still on. And look out for Hudhud. This is yet another message where Hudhud asks you to wear a mask, and there is a connotation of how, you know, the mask is turned into a hammock here. So that's where it ends. Currently, there are the lab results are out. The lab experiment says that people are adhering better to negative messages rather than positive messages at this time of COVID-19, when mortality salience is quite high and people are really worried about not contacting COVID-19. And we're waiting for the field experiment to get more results and know where, you know, and in informing both government and policy on what sort of messages they should use in these sort of pandemic situation. So that's it from me. Thank you. And I'm open to questions.
Yeah, thank you, Preeta. It was a nice presentation. The message framing is the art of crafting messages that influence people is very true. The positive and negative message framing was clearly brought out by you. Your observation that the public follow positive messages holds true. And also the other reason could be fear of death, which force the people to follow the health messages. The live study that you are doing in Jamshedpur is quite interesting. We would like to know more about it during the question hour session.
Sure.
I would also like to bring out that the character that you displayed, Hudhud, is very realistic. And there are no film stars or pole stars in the advertisement. So the common people will find these advertised very close to their heart. So thank you very much for bringing out this. And now we move on to our next presenter. We have with us today Lakshmi Priya ji. She's a research scholar, Mumbai School of Economics and Public Policy, University of Mumbai. And she will be highlighting today of how to cope with chronic health issues during pandemic, especially for women in Mumbai metropolitan region. So over to Lakshmi Priya.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you. Am I audible? Am I audible?
Yes, you're audible.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you for giving me the opportunity. I will share the screen. Pandemic for women in Maharashtra. Actually, first I was thinking, first I had given the abstract was given only for women. But then I got some data from some rural areas of Maharashtra also. So I thought I will include that also in this. The actual paper is written by me and my PhD guide Manisha Kane from Mumbai School of Economics and Public Policy. So the background of the study is Maharashtra has been performing better than the national average in all the health indicators. But now we can see that for COVID-19, Maharashtra has the highest number of infected COVID cases. And we all know that because of COVID-19, there was a lockdown is going on, and there is availability of hospital beds, staff, drugs, medical equipments and supplies are very less now. It has become very difficult to get even a hospital bed. So also we all know that in yesterday also in some presentations it was seen that there is low public funding. Government is not spending that much in India in the national and state levels. And in India, there is a very high problem of out-of-pocket expenditure, and it is actually pushing people to poverty. So coping up with this pandemic has affected different sections differently. And how has this pandemic made the vulnerable sections worse off? What has been the impact of women, which is women are the vulnerable sections of our country. So in this study makes an attempt to present a small part of an ongoing study of impact of COVID-19 on the marginal sections of the population, particularly women in some parts of the states. So the study it says that in some like one study, Rampat said that there is backward sections of the social category and vulnerable to financial catastrophe, and this is caused by illness. And there's another study which says that
Lakshmi, I'm sorry to interrupt, but your audio is really quite low. Maybe you could turn off the video. It will improve the sound quality.
they don't take that, especially in slums.
She's not able to hear. Lakshmi ma'am.
Hello. Yeah. Yes.
Please turn off your video. Just keep audio. We can hear you properly.
Okay. Okay, guys. Now is it audible? Hello, Aruna?
Yeah, but little bit should be increased. It's very low voice. Hello, Priya ma'am?
Now is it okay?
Yeah, it's fine.
But it's not clear.
It's not that clear.
Aruna, now is it clear? Hello, Aruna?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So there is a study by Sarude which says that women in the slums and women who are illiterate, they are vulnerable and they need more awareness campaign. A study by Gill in slums of Amritsar city, they say that women who are educated and in upper social category, they are able to take, they could afford to take treatment during an illness. In another study that is during this pandemic, there is one study by Kumari, Mehta and Chowdhury, and it is said that there are the unattended deliveries and lower level of facilities have increased very much, and say they are of the opinion that the emergence of obstetric care must be affected by the lockdown. And another study says that during the pandemic, says that direct consultation with the doctor is not possible. So there is a teleconsultation of Apollo and Apollo 24/7. They have found that it is suggested that telemedicine can be used for non-emergency gynecology health issues. So the present study examines what are the determinants of demand for medical care during COVID time for women, whether women could access healthcare and what was the cost of this healthcare. Did the access differ according to socio-economic characteristics of women? So the study mainly focuses on women in the age group of 18 to 59. They are in the reproductive age group and also they are in the working age group also. And this group consists of women who work they have a double burden of work at home as well as working in the office or working outside the home. And this is a part of an ongoing study. We are actually expecting to get a sample of 800 to 1,000 women. And this is a small study. We have got around 130 samples for this presentation. and we intended to include health care expenditure prior to COVID-19, that is pre-COVID and during COVID-19, and preventive measures taken by households, including cost, coping up with the reproductive health needs of women, the double burden of household work and work from home, mental stress, and self-reported health status. So methodology used for the survey, primary survey was done using Google Forms and also telephone conversation, and was collected in the last week of August 2020 for studying how women are coping with the health issues during pandemic. Almost 130 response. We got around 130 responses. Around 150 links were sent randomly to the contact list of our contact list. And the responses are basically from Mumbai and some parts of rural areas of Maharashtra. A well-structured questionnaire was used. For the study, we used cross tabs and some regression, and it was done in SPSS. We have also taken a comparative study with the National Sample Survey Organization, 71st round, which is on health, NFHS 4, and a survey in 2019 was done, a sample of 530. Actually, it was for my PhD study. In 2019, survey was conducted, and there are around 530 women. That will be pre-COVID then. So this is used for comparative analysis. So we can see that in the profile of the sample, the place of residence is, that is 74% are from urban areas. I couldn't get much women from rural areas, but then whatever I could get, I'm showing it here. So rural areas, it is around 25%. And we can see that there are around 26% are having reproductive health problems, minor health problems like fever and cold cough around 51%, and NCDs are non-communicable diseases like diabetes, cancer, that is around 17%. So education is also around, I think most of the women, they are around graduates and postgraduates. So that is the sample. We can also see that the descriptive statistics, that is mean age is around 38, monthly family income is around 19,000. Number of years of schooling is 13, that is they are mainly graduates, and doctor's fee was around 453. So healthcare seeking behavior of women during COVID-19. So how did they healthcare, how was it during the pandemic? So I have taken a regression analysis, and I have found that I have taken many socioeconomic variables, and I have found that social category was a significant variable. Social category means that is in the general category, scheduled caste, scheduled tribe, and I have found that social category is a significant variable. But then it is, and also I have found that it's you can see from the table that unstandardized B is negative. So that means when the women are in the low social category, I have taken the consultation of doctor as a dependent variable. So that means when they are the low social category, the consultation of doctor was low. And also place of residence, that is in urban areas or rural areas, where did they have the consultation of doctor more or less. So I also found that when the women move from urban to rural areas, there is low consultation of doctors. So we can say that access to doctors and consultation for medical aid is less when women are in rural areas, and for women from social categories like scheduled caste and scheduled tribe. So here I'm seeing, I'm going further into the consultation of doctors. Urban women who could consult doctors, we can say that 47% of women who had reproductive problems, they were able to consult doctors. And minor health, those who had non-communicable diseases, around 23% they could consult doctors. And in rural areas, we can say that more than half the sample who had minor health problems, they were able to consult doctors. Reproductive health problems 25, and non-communicable disease around 13%. So what were the reasons for not consulting the doctor according to urban and rural areas? We can see that in urban areas, it was more than half the sample, they said that they are not comfortable to go to consult a doctor during the COVID-19. That is 53%, they said that. And in rural areas, it was mainly doctor was not available, and it was, they did not want to spend money during this time. So we can conclude from this table that in rural areas, there was no access to doctors, and non-affordability was the two major issues. And in urban areas, the fear of COVID, especially in a hotspot, urban area is the Mumbai that I have taken. The fear of COVID, especially in a hotspot like Mumbai, is responsible for postponing the demand for medical care. So I have also asked the question like whether the health problem worsened or not during COVID-19. So in urban areas, we can say that more than half the sample, they said that their problem worsened. So they are affected by the COVID-19, they are affected by this. And in rural areas also, they have said that they have the problem worsened. So from the table, and also I have asked them whether if they went to private hospitals, whether they were charged more. So so they have said that they were charged, because urban areas we can see that around 53% said that that is more than half the sample said that they were charged more in private hospitals. So more than 50% urban areas as well as rural areas feel that their health problems have worsened during COVID due to lack of healthcare facilities, and more than 50% feel that they were overcharged for the consultation during COVID-19 in private hospitals. So major findings are that women suffered from reproductive health problems, other minor health problems, and fever, cough, body pain, stomach pain, acidity, and non-communicable diseases during the lockdown period, and mostly they relied on private doctors. And more than half the sample said that their health problem worsened due to not consulting the doctor. Place of residence and social category are significant, and consultation of doctor decreased when the women are in rural areas and low social category. So women are charged more during COVID than normal times, especially in urban areas. In an earlier survey for my PhD in 2019, I did a survey from 530 women in these same ages, 18 to 59, and I found that women are mainly using savings of the household for their healthcare expenses, and they do not have insurance. So it is a matter of concern that women are having women are going to private healthcare, and they are charged more because I think their economic condition will be worse off during this time. As we all know that the job of the women and also their families are also affected. So it is a matter of concern here. So hence, to conclude, when the healthcare becomes inaccessible and costlier, it adversely affects their incomes, erodes their savings, and they are forced to borrow or defer treatment with adverse impact on their health. And this indicates that COVID-19 has adversely affected women as one of the vulnerable sections of the population. I have given some policy suggestions. That is, government has failed to anticipate or neglect of non-COVID health issues. I have mainly asked about non-COVID health issues in this for the survey, especially reproductive health issues for women. This has constrained the access to healthcare for women in lower incomes to higher income categories. Important reason for not consulting doctor was fear of exposure to COVID. So there can be, I have also asked them whether they could consult doctors through video calls or phone calls. So there can be mobile vans so that access to doctors can be very easy. At least the checkups can be made easy. There has been more awareness on online and phone consultations. There has to be some regulation of the fees charged by private doctors and hospitals. And reproductive health facilities of the public health should be provided in a diversified manner through mobile vans, telemedicine facilities, collaborating with private providers, and urban health posts in effective manner. So I have also found that in the National Sample Survey Organization, they have the health survey also says that women take hospital bills are paid through their savings, and there is no insurance or any other this. So it is a matter of concern, and I think it should be clearly some policies has to be included so that their economic condition is not worsened, and also their health also matters, and especially for reproductive and non-communicable diseases, because non-communicable diseases also they have to take medicines and they have to have treatment for a long time, and that is increasing among women. So I think that's a matter of concern for the government, for all of us, I think. So thank you for listening to me.
Yes, thank you, Lakshmi Priya. You highlighted various issues You spoke of the two studies, study by Sarodi on behavior of women in slum of Greater Mumbai and study by Gill in slums of Amritsar among married girls of age of 14 to 15. The study was based on 130 responses. What I would like to say here is that even when the marriage age is fixed by the government, yet we see that child marriage is happening across the country. Okay, we move on further. You spoke of telemedicine. What I feel is telemedicine allows patients to have access to quality medical health care from comfort zone of their homes, but only in general cases and not in critical cases. You also
Yeah,
brought,
yes.
yes, you also brought out the fact that there is a difference between rural and urban areas when it comes to access to healthcare facilities. Okay.
Yeah,
You also
yes,
brought out
yeah.
the social stratification, that is caste based and also based on the place of residence. You also highlighted the relationship between income and savings. The fear of exposure to COVID is the major reason for not consulting doctors. So, in my opinion, I feel that people need to understand that lack of good reproductive health can lead to death in certain cases. I know that in your conclusion, you mentioned about government also taking efforts towards the health of women. But right now, I would say that the entire focus is on the pandemic. But well, it was a nice presentation which brought up a very different topic. Okay, thank you again. Now we move on to our last presenter, Tripti Bharatwal. Madam is the director, Lal Bahadur Shastri Institute of Management and Development Studies, Lucknow, and she would be talking on work-life balance of working women during COVID-19 issues and challenges. So we have one more presenter who's going to highlight the issues of women. Over to Trupti.
A very good afternoon to all of you. I hope I'm audible.
Yes, you are audible.
Thank you. And I would like to congratulate the organizers, Water Policy Center, and thank them for having me here. And I would also like to appreciate and thank you for the presence of the chairman of the session, the chairperson of the session, the co-panelists. They had very, very interesting inputs regarding various aspects and the various impacts of COVID-19 pandemic. Now, what as the session chair has already informed that the presentation or whatever I'm trying to say today is based on a very, very simple and a basic thing. But like this pandemic has impacted, every little big, it has not left anything which is not under its impact. So it is also impacting the society at large, and it is impacting the basic building block of the society, the family, and within the family, it has impacted the women the most, and especially the working women. And how I would say that is, I would just share my presentation with you, and then so I hope my presentation is visible to you.
Yes, it is visible.
So you can see that my topic is work-life balance of working women during COVID-19 issues and challenges. Now, at least in my country, women have been conditioned for several years to take care of the household responsibilities. So it has been like whatever you do, house is your area, it is your responsibility primarily. So now, as women started getting educated, they started moving out, their number in the workforce increased. what happened, that they started moving out, but yet they had to look back, and the family, the household responsibilities was still tied to their self. So that did not happen with men going out, but it still, it definitely happened with women, because men, in any case, from the time we were into Stone Age also, it was understood that men would go out hunting and looking for food for the family, and women would take care of the house. But now, because women were also moving out, there was no distribution in responsibilities, and still it was assumed that they will work at the office also, and they have to take care of the home also. So and the catch was that they have to be efficient in both the places. In the home they were efficient, and equally efficiency, because it was always thought that women are coming to the office, so they will not be able to work. They are not that they don't have that kind of a strength, or that intellectual ability, or that analytical ability, because they have not worked. So that pressure was more on them to perform, to make it a point to people that yes, they can also deliver. Then in this scenario, the concept of work-life balance emerged and became popular in the 1980s. Earlier, there was no question of work-life balance, because that was not required in the case of men. So we all know what work-life balance means. It is a state of equilibrium between a person's personal and professional lives. And one of the key strategies to achieve work-life balance is allowing employees to work from home. This is very common in the IT sector, and it has become, now because of the pandemic, it has seeped into so many sectors. So most of the people are working from home. So, but this came as a strategy for work-life balance, so that women staying back at home, they can take care of both the things. Now, why are we talking about work-life balance for females? I've already given you a little preview, and everybody knows it is a very simple and a basic thing which we are talking here today. And but I'll quote certain research findings and data also regarding that even though women participation in the workforce is widely accepted, majority of the caring responsibility of the family lie with the fairer sex. So on and off, whatever research has been done into who takes care of the house, we have all observed, and the research has also brought forth this point that it is the woman who takes care of the responsibility. That does not mean that men do not face this issue. In today's time, men also face this issue, because they also want to spend time with the family, so they have their own painful choices. But the society's expectation from men is that they should earn money. Their primary responsibility is to earn money, and for that, if they have to travel, if they have to stay away from home for hours or days together, it is fine, because this is a natural thing for men to do. But once a woman starts doing this, what happens? People say she's too ambitious, and she's only concerned about herself. Oh, she's too career oriented, not family material. So people start labeling and branding women these ways. Then there was a study in 2017 by the Pew Research Center, which found that 71% of the respondents felt that for a man to be considered a good husband or father, he must be able to financially support his family. So that is the societal pressure on men, that they have to work anyhow, even if they do not want to work. And in the case of women, it is the contrary, that if you want to work, then you should be able to take care of the home also. There was an article explaining the persistence of gender inequality, the work-family narrative as a social defense against the 24/7 work culture. And it mentions that in a top consulting firm, long work hours culture was detrimental to both women and men, but women paid a higher price. This data also supports what research says, certain raw data which was collected. And when I was working on this topic, initially I used to think before that this problem of too much responsibilities on the female, all the household and family responsibilities on female, is probably is a feature which is it is only there in my country, and it is not there in other countries, the developed countries of the world. And I thought that it is more or less in the South Asian countries, Southeast Asian countries, and those which are considered as developing economies. But to my utter surprise, I found out that it is not a disease which is only there for selective areas or selective regions. It is an ill which has affected almost all the world. So in Australia, women's labor force participation rate stood at 61.1% in 2019. So, I mean, if you look at the other figures, which I'll be quoting after this is very impressive. But otherwise, if you see that 61.1% is, I mean, it should be 100% otherwise. Then Canada, over half of women participated in the labor force in 2018. Women's labor force participation rates have remained above 50% since 1980. The European Union, almost half of women, that is 48.3% of women, were employed in 2018. India, it is dismal. Women's labor force participation has fallen from 30.4% in 1990 to 23.4% in 2019. Because many women, after getting married, because the husband is transferred to a place where they don't have proper career options, or after, bearing a child, they cannot move out. So, there's a decline also here. Then in Japan, again, there was a little rise, 1.4% in 2017. So it became 52.5% in 2018. So here again, not very much more than the half percent. Then United States, 57.1% of women are in the labor force in 2018 compared to 69.1% of all men. The rate of women's participation peaked in 1999 at 60%. And globally, only 41 million, that is 1.5% men, provide unpaid care on a full-time basis compared to 606 million, that is 21.7% women. So you can see that how there's so much of imbalance, how it is skewed. The data is totally skewed, and you can see that the kind of unpaid work a woman has to undertake and the kind of unpaid work the man has to undertake, there's a lot of difference in that. And that is why we are talking only about the work-life balance of females, because this data shows that there are certain constraints, there are certain restrictions because of which women have not been able to join the workforce as such. There can be certain, voluntary decisions also, I agree. But beyond that, all of them cannot be voluntary. And if the rate of participation is so low in comparison to men, then women who must be participating in the workforce, that means they have come out as a strong-willed females who want to work, who want to, utilize whatever they have acquired during the process of their education. So if they have come out as strong-willed women, the pressure is more on them to perform at both the places. So you can see the average, time which is spent on unpaid work, and you can see that in case of women and men in different countries, and you can very well see in men, in none of the countries it is more than 2 hours. In India it is only 52 minutes, and in Japan it is lesser than India, that is 41 minutes. Otherwise, in the case of females, it is either 4 hours or more than 4 hours. Only France is an exception, where it is 3 hours and 44 minutes. In case of women and men, it is 2 hours and 15 minutes. There also there is a difference, even if the difference is not that substantial. So now, if the situation is not very balanced, otherwise also, has COVID created a problem? Has it done something to aggravate it? So let's see that also. Certain studies which were conducted, yes, it has done, and it has made it worse. Now, what are the issues and challenges in work-life balance due to COVID-19? Firstly, the new normal, as we know, is not normal. So nothing is like it was before. And what has changed? It has happened for the first time in the modern history that all the three important institutions of the society, home, school, and office, have moved to a common physical space. So that is the biggest change with this pandemic has created. So initially, during the very early days of the civilization, probably home and school were at the same place, right? And maybe office was also, if the people working in cottage industries, then it was at that point of time. And after that, the three streams segregated from each other very clearly. And in very very few cases, home and school would coincide for a few days, or so home and office would coincide. Otherwise, they were totally three different arenas. The concept of work from home, which was initiated to relieve employees of the stress caused by a face-off between work and family needs, has been infested with a lot of stress because of role blurring. So a concept, work from home, which was introduced to relieve employees, especially female employees, from the stress caused by not being able to balance both the aspects, has itself created so much of stress, because when you are staying at the same place handling two roles, then what happens, that there is a role blurring. You don't know which role you are performing at what point of time. So if today I'm still very occasionally I'm going to the office, I'm still working from home. So at this point of time, I do not know, I'm at home, but I don't know whether actually doing, because my mind is my ears are also hearing, and mind is also occupied with all the houses, all the noises which are coming from the house. So there is a lot of role blurring. So two specific trends that are of particular relevance to the emergence of role blurring is the rise of 24/7 global economy that has increased employer and employee demand for flexible work schedules. So when employees have demanded for flexible work schedules, because you can work from anywhere, what has it resulted? That you are always working. You're always flexible work schedules, employees required for their own benefit, for their own convenience. But what has it resulted? That you have to be connected all the time. And there are remote work options and the proliferation of communications technology that allow work to be performed anytime, anywhere. So there was a research conducted by the American Psychological Association titled Stress in the Time of COVID-19 suggests that stress levels may be particularly elevated for female employees. Now, there was again a study which was conducted by Mercer in collaboration with Cruncher, and it surveyed 485 employees, including 197 men and 288 women, working in a cross-section of organizations and industries around the world. The survey found that female respondents, in comparison to male respondents, were significantly more concerned about managing their workload and maintaining their work-life balance. And it is very obvious, because females will be more worried, because it is actually who they have the ultimate and the final responsibility for taking care of the house. There is another survey by Lean In Organization and Survey Monkey, which was again conducted in 2020. It found that women are shouldering a much heavier burden of household labor and caregiving during COVID-19, and it's taking a toll. They are experiencing physical symptoms of stress and burnout which is twice the rate of men. Among women and men who have full-time jobs, partners, and children, women are spending an average of 7.4 more hours per week than men on childcare. So there's a drastic difference, 7.4 hours more. That is almost more than the 1/3 of the day, 1/4 of the day. So there's a paper by Collins and his associates. They found that mothers of young children reduce their working hours 4 to 5 times more than fathers, widening the gender gap in hours from 20% to 50%. Parents and caregivers are now caring of and entertaining their kids 24/7 on top of working or searching for a job. These conflicting demands require all parents to make difficult choices, but it is mothers who are more frequently making career sacrifices for their children. There was an online survey of urban upper middle class working women, and there 76% of the respondents said that initially, I mean, before COVID, they had household help, the child care facilities before the lockdown. But of these, only 30% of the women continue to have some help. People are so afraid, they don't want to call any extra person to their home. And they don't want to, of course, they don't want to send their children to somewhere outside. So areas where most work increases take place include cooking, kitchen, cleaning, washing dishes, dusting and vacuuming, and sanitizing groceries. This is an added gift of the pandemic, that whatever you're bringing home, you're so afraid, you are cleaning it, you're sanitizing it. There's one additional duty which has increased. Now now the point is, what the point which was being noted is that the women are worst hit, not because of their official workload has increased. What has happened? It is actually their personal life has spilled into every part of work. It is actually the personal workload which has increased so much. And earlier, the personal life had to balance with work. Today, it seems vice versa. Work has become, it seems to be a real villain when you're working at home and there's no help, and you have so many, household responsibilities to cater to. And in the mid of that, there you get a call from the office, or you have some official engagement. You feel, neither you feel connected to it, neither you are in that kind of a mental orientation, and it feels like an unnecessary burden to you. And very importantly, not every house, it has been designed in a way that there will be a special private space if a pandemic occurs and people have to work from home. So every house has, and many people before pandemic were not even required to work from home. So the houses may not be that big. Everybody may not be having that luxury of having a workspace or study. There the pressure is all the more. Then obviously, the worst hit females are those who are having toddlers, infants, and there is no daycare available. And then there is a stress, continuous, news of recession, downsizing coming from all directions, number of people, infected, mortality. All this is creating lots and lots of stress. The common premise is that work-life balance provisions are introduced to help employees reconcile what they want to do and with what they have to. Work-life balance was introduced because it was assumed, it was presumed that women actually want to take care of their home, but along with that, they also want to work. So let's have this work-life balance concept. But what is happening in this premise, that a very important dimension of work is ignored, and that is that work can represent escape and self-expression. Work is a very good way. I'm sure that you yourself, all those females who are there in the today's session, and your also colleagues, female colleagues, have at some point or the other before this pandemic or during this pandemic, they must have discussed, that once you come to office, there's a little relief, you get cut off from your home, and you are your own, you have a self identity, you can do things, you can interact at ease and comfort, and you can have a little relaxed mind. There may be a lot of pressures in the office, but going to office also de-stresses. I'm sure everybody would agree to it. So work is also a means of escape and self-expression. And academic research has found that for women, having more than 2 children lead to longer working hours as a means of escaping family stress. So work can be a source of satisfaction and motivation. There are so many theories of organizational behavior, psychology, human resource management who have again and again pointed out to the fact that work is not only work, it is a source of satisfaction, fulfillment of social needs, self-esteem needs, and motivation of employees. So now we can, if we look at the entire scenario, there is a pressure of household responsibility, and secondly the relief which was being provided, that little window of hope, that little window of relaxation has also gone. So the stress has increased manyfold. Now what can be done? Difficult to come out of this situation, but the first thing which can be done, and that is an initiative or men coming forward and understanding, probably several men who are working from home, and now they must be realizing that when there's so much of to do at home, there's so much of the work is only 7, 8, 9 hours, but household responsibilities are 24 by 7. So we work for 5 days a week or 6 days a week, but in the house there is no chutti, there is no leave. So men have to come forward and they have to voluntarily take up some part of the domestic responsibilities. Here it has been mentioned, I've mentioned equitable, but even if it is not equitable, but at least some more parts of the responsibility, a higher percentage of the responsibility they have to undertake. And in order to have equality between the two, males and females, it is not merely important that women should be acquiring, or they should be occupying higher positions in the organizations, or they should be allowed to work, they should be allowed to acquire higher degrees, but it is also important to have an equality at home. And it says that charity begins at home. So first equality has to come there, then only equality will come outside. So there has to be a total change in the mindset, because as I said, and as everybody agrees, that this COVID-19 has questioned each and everything. So why not this aspect? This aspect also needs to be transformed. And social support from the family, co-workers, supervisors, other people could minimize stress among the employees. So I would not this point of co-workers, supervisors, organizations, I would keep at the lowest, because they were already helping women out with this concept of work-life balance. But the other part of the story, from where the support should come, from where the women should be helped to strike a balance, probably that much of support is not there. So I would like to wind up with this picture. In our country, in my religion, Hinduism, women are taken as goddess. And when we talk about a goddess, she has multiple hands, she's all powerful, and she is multitasking. Probably this image of women being goddess and multitasking has been taken too far. They have been multitasking, they are still multitasking, but probably now these multiple hands are also not enough for them to balance. So they are walking on a very, very tight rope. So I would like to conclude by saying that work from home is an intervention for achieving work-life balance. It was introduced as a substitute for working from office in specific circumstances, but it was not meant to replace it. Though this situation is entirely different, unexpected, it was this work from home was meant to be absolutely voluntary, not compulsory. It was meant to be stress reducing, not stress generating. And till the time the coronavirus does not bid adieu to it, and I wish and I pray to God, like everybody, that it does say bye very, very soon. Work from home, but till the time it is there with us as a reality, work from home will continue to be in the main lead. But beyond that, it will have to move back to its original supporting role status, because it is creating, as I said, a lot of role blurring, and it is creating a lot of stress. It is like a sweet served and enjoyed best post dinner, but it cannot replace dinner. It is the sweet which has been offered to female employees and also to men, to to enjoy their work and to handle both the places equally well. But it cannot be a substitute for the real life which we are leading. So thank you so much for hearing me out, and I hand over to the session chair.
Thank you, Trupti madam. Your presentation reminds me of a feminist thinker, Simone de Beauvoir. You chose a very vibrant topic, work-life balance of working women during COVID-19 issues and challenges. You brought out comparative figures about the labor force in Australia, Canada, European Union, India, Japan, and the United States. The comparative table given by you highlighting average time spent on unpaid work was a bit saddening for me. There is a generalized perception, which is true, that women work more from home than men. There is no clear distinction between the working hours when it comes to work from home and work for home. The concept that mother or wife works from home, she is also a professional, has still not sinked into the minds of people, I would say. There are very few men who understand and respect the value of hard work of women. The survey of 485 employees with 288 women employees was also brought about by you, and it was very important. It is true that asking for domestic help is a problem, mainly in two areas. First, the fear is of contracting COVID, and second, I feel the fear is of the level of hygiene, as these domestic helpers generally come from slums and unhygienic dwelling places. In the last part of your presentation, you gave certain solutions, and they are quite workable. Uh, what I have observed is there are a few institutions who are taking care of emotional health of their women employees also, but they are very few. So overall, the presentation was very good. Thank you. And now we come to the last part. I congratulate and appreciate all the panelists, Anna Volkova, Abdul Mohit Chaudhary, Preeta Menon, Lakshmi Priya, and Tripti Bharatwal for putting in lot of efforts in preparing wonderful presentations. I thank the organizers, and I would like to put on record my special appreciation for the student volunteers, moderators, and rapporteurs from Ratnam College and VG Vaze College for diligently shouldering the responsibilities given to them. I thank my mentor, Principal Dr. B.B. Sharma, for believing in my abilities. I stand today before you because of my mentor. So thank you, Sharma sir. And over to the organizers. Tanmay, thank you very much for the wonderful introduction. And over to you. Thank you, one. Thank you all.
Ma'am, we can go for this question answer session.
Yes, we can definitely go for the question hour session. I have two questions. One is for Trupti madam. Madam, could you just highlight on the organized and unorganized sector? So one question from my side to Trupti, and other question is I would just take my questions, first, and then we will see the chat box. I would like to know more about the Jamshedpur survey that is going on. So, Tripti ma'am, first we will take up your question. Okay, so can you highlight on the organized and unorganized?
Yeah, definitely. Thank you. And it is very obvious that the kind of work-life balance strategies and initiatives which the organized sector is offering to the women are not available at all in the organized sector. The working conditions are appalling. The women are exploited. Not even women, I should say, the workforce is exploited. The long working hours, many times, they have to take children to the working place, and there are no there aren't any childcare facilities, no daycare centers where the children can, and they themselves, if they want to do it on their own in a private daycare center, they cannot afford it. And after COVID-19, I'm sure that this condition has worsened. Whatever we see in the news, whatever we read in the newspapers, so many factories stopped working. Many of them were actually shut down also. So all migrant laborers who had moved to various industrial areas, they had to come back home. And even if who stayed back and who are still working, I can understand if educated women working at decent places like us are bearing the burnt of the pandemic and handling so many different things at home because of lack of probably the proper support, social support. I can understand, and I am sure we all can understand what they must be going through, because the situation for them was earlier also the same. They were working at wherever they were working, like any construction site or any place they were working in a factory. And again, when they come back home, how many of us have seen on the way back home, when we see them, they are lighting fire and they are cooking something. So everything they have to do. And earlier also they were doing it, now they are also doing it. But now what has happened, that financial stress has also increased on them. So the situation has worsened because of that. So I feel my heart goes out to them all the more, because we are at least discussing, and we are also at least able to speak about it. They are not able to speak also about it.
Yes, thank you very much, madam. Can we take up the next question? I request Tanmay to look into the chat box for any questions, if there are.
We are not having any questions as such. Yeah,
Okay,
we do not have any questions in the chat box, ma'am. You
okay,
had another question, right?
okay, no problem. We will move on to the another speaker. Madam, I would like to know a bit about the Jamshedpur survey. Could you please highlight on it?
Sure. Sure. So this project actually started somewhere in the end of June, when the cases had started to rise, and quite alarmingly in India. So a few of us professors actually got together. So it's very rare that we get a chance that a university professor gets to work with, the government for something that is so large scale. So thankfully, the government at Jamshedpur were very open to this idea. And somewhere around the beginning of July is when we started conceptualizing how can we send out messages that will help improve the situation, like a pilot project. And if this works out, then it could go as a recommendation to other governments where we could, pitch this out. So we were actually racking our brains saying there should be a character, should this be an animated character, should this be a real person? We poor professors don't really have a lot of budgets. So we pulled in students to help us out, freelancers to create caricatures, and went through several rounds of discussion to see what this character should look like. Finally, what should we name it? So Hood is basically to say go away. In northern India, this Hood Maji as a character is somebody who would tell people the right things to do, like for example to wear mask, to use a sanitizer, to maintain social distance, and people would not pay attention and say Hood Maji. And ultimately that would lead to more COVID cases in that particular area, or to those people who are uh, uh, not adhering to the rules and regulations. So this I conceptualized as an idea. And then there was a conversation of let's look at research and see what research says. So there is when we had this conflict of positive messages and negative messages, saying should we use positive or negative. So then we pitched on a research idea itself, and decided with the help of course, the government and the faculty at XLRI to conduct our first pilot study in Jamshedpur. So we started with a Twitter story on the handle of the government, and with hoardings that the government owned at Jamshedpur, to speak about this, to introduce this character. He was in a sort of, just the back of the character was seen and say ki hudud maji aa raha hai, and jo hudud ki nahi sunega uska kya hoga. So it created curiosity that, oh, if you don't listen to him, what would happen? What would happen? And now we are at phase 2, where we are going to release new ads of adhering to various safety measures to take care of COVID. While it's an interesting project, this is also a story of how academic work can affect policy development, can help masses in general, and how the strength of communication and media can actually both the knowledge of academic theory, as well as the strength of reaching out to the masses, can change behavior in the society itself. And I think in India, we are at that stage where we really, really need it. I mean, we are still not seeing cases tapering. We are still not seeing, positive enforcement behavior from the people. So this is become timely, and it is also an area that I am very, very passionate about. So I'd be happy for whoever who wants to know more about this project to, also who want to help us out, because we are looking out for people who can do more caricatures, who can create more social media content. So this is a call out actually for anybody who wants to know more, or participate and do more, to come forward and reach out to me. We'll be happy to take your help in this process. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much, madam. Yes, anybody else would like to ask any question to the presenters, or yes, sir, there is a question
Ma'am,
for
we
you.
have a question
Abdul
for
sir.
Abdul sir.
Yes. So, Abdul sir, there's a question for
Yeah.
you. Yeah. Can you please
In
answer?
this situation of pandemic, where all the countries are supposed to come together, can the global minimum corporate tax help people with their medical expenditure as well as, sorry, with their medical expenditure as a part of their corporate responsibility? What are the chances of employment for individuals since we are on the verge of a huge global recession?
Yeah, so thanks, Amruta, for that question. And I think it's a bundle of questions actually. So I'll just address these various components. So the first thing is to just explain a little about how this global minimum corporate tax is designed to work. So the idea is that there would be an agreement on a certain percentage, 15%, 12%, 20%. That percentage is being negotiated over, and once the percentage has been agreed upon, then the minimum tax would function as a top up. So let's say that so let's say the percentage is agreed upon 15%, and Google in India, or the Google subsidiary or branch, whatever in India, is paying less than that amount. It's paying less than 20%. It's paying, let's say, 7%. So it would have to pay an additional 13% of taxes so that it reaches up to that level. So that is how the tax has been designed, and that is there's a lot more to it, but that is the basic idea. So now this is the first aspect. Now this revenue would then go to the government, and the government can then use this for spending it on medical expenditure, but that's not guaranteed. It could also use it for other things, which is a choice, which is then a political question. Now, would the company itself use this money to spend on medical expenditure? That is a separate question. That would really depend on each country, what kind of laws they have, and that would not be a tax really. That would be a voluntary contribution unless it's mandated by the government that the company has to pay some amount as CSR, as it is in India. So so these are two specific aspects, but I would say that definitely, for sure, the minimum corporate tax would definitely increase in the revenues of governments across the world for sure. And hopefully some of that would be used for medical expenditure. The second question which was raised is that what are the chances of employment for individuals since we are on the verge of a huge global recession? I mean, it seems like we're in it already. And in a way, it's a strange thing to say, but it's actually not a bad thing that the COVID pandemic has come now, because the economic analysis by and large was that by the end of 2019 or by the middle of 2020, there would have been a global recession anyway. So if the pandemic had come, let's say 2 or 3 years later, that would have been very bad, because then it would have affected the economic recovery. So the fact that it has come when there was going to be a recession anyway is, in a strange way, it's not such a bad thing. Now, that being said, the chances of employment for individuals, I mean, for the next year and a half at least, we can assume that the layoffs would continue. And in fact, we've not seen the worst yet, because corporate bond defaults are only beginning. So we are going to see a huge debt crisis actually, when private debt, which was very high because of all the easy money policies of all the monetary policies which were used in the developed countries, we are now going to see the effect of that, when private corporations cannot really pay back and then they go bust. So for a year and a half at least, it's really going to be quite terrible. So sorry, there's no good news over there.
Thank you so much, sir. Yes, Tanmay, any other question?
Yeah. No, ma'am. There are no questions.
Okay, so
Yeah.
Aruna ma'am, can we?
Yes, sir. Yeah, we can
Can we
wind.
proceed with? Yeah.
Yes,
Tanmay.
yes. Thank you, Aruna ma'am. So now I request the
Good. Yeah.
organizers to.
Thank you, the distinguished chairs, speakers. Yeah. Thank you, the distinguished chairs, speakers, ladies and gentlemen. As we come to an end of this session, it is my great pleasure and honor to propose a vote of thanks on behalf of Water Policy
Uh,
Tanmay,
project.
madam, can
I
you
would
just?
like to express our gratitude and
Tanmay,
sincere thanks.
Tanmay, I guess they have one question from Amruta.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Can we go for that?
Yes, definitely, madam. We can go for that question.
Okay. Sorry for interrupt.
I was thanking sir for answering in detail.
I guess the ready. It was in the chat box, ma'am.
Yes, Tanmay.
Ma'am, I guess the question is addressed.
Okay. Aruna ma'am, the question is already addressed.
It was in the chat box.
Okay,
Yes.
Yes,
then
ma'am.
you can please continue.
Aruna ma'am, I just wanted to make a point. Today we had with us our principal, Dr. B.B. Sharma, who
Okay.
was there with us for some time. So I wanted to acknowledge his presence.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you, Aruna ma'am. Over to Tanmay.
Okay, Tanmay, please.
Yeah. We would like to further extend our sincere thanks to all the speakers for delivering such a comprehensive and insightful presentation. We are honored to have all the speakers with us here today. We would like to acknowledge our gratitude to our friends and community, experts, academia, media, and different organizations here. Last but not the least, I would like to mention our deep sense of appreciation for our audience who participated in the webinar and those who are watching us live. We are truly honored to have you all since and hope to stay connected with you in the future as well. I request all of you to kindly join us for the next session. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you
Thank
all.
you, Priya ma'am, Prita ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you,
very much.
Tripti ma'am. Thank you very much for joining us. Thank you, Anna madam. Mansi ma'am, principal sir is here. He will join for next session. Tanmay, your mate,
Yes,
your principal sir is going to join next session.
let me check if he is in this meeting.
Okay, no, ma'am told no that.
No, ma'am said that he was there for some time, I guess.
Okay, okay,
I
he
think
was
he
there.
left. Yeah,
Okay, okay, okay,
I can't see him here. Okay.
okay, no problem.
I am a member of next session. Please keep me. Leonid Smorgonov.
Okay, Leonid.
Good afternoon, sir. Good afternoon,
Good afternoon.
Leonid. Welcome.
But here in Russia, morning.
Oh, okay. Good morning.
Good morning, Saraswati.
Welcome. We'll begin the session very soon, right, Aruna?
Yeah,
Yes, okay.
within 10 minutes,
10
ma'am.
minutes.
It's
Hello,
10 minutes.
Joanne. Hello, Joanne. You have to unmute yourself.
Sure.
Good
Hello.
afternoon, Paul. Hello.
Hi.
Hello,
Good
ma'am.
night for me. It's 2:30 a.m.
Sorry.